Welcome back to Chatooine, everyone. I'm your host, Star Wars Only, joined with a Halloween special, Darth Daddy Lunga and the Goldman.
You like my unicorn outfit? It's a classic.
I think it's beautiful.
It's fantabulous.
Thank you. Well, happy almost Halloween.
Yes.
What do you guys? My friends and I were talking about this the other day. What do you guys have a certain name for the night before Halloween?
No.
You don't?
No.
We call it Mischief Night. This is the night you go and you throw toilet paper over people's houses. You never heard of that?
No.
We're not juvenile delinquents like you.
Yeah. I mean,
come on, Star Wars Only.
I don't know who TPs people's houses anymore. Now you just,
I haven't done it. I haven't done it in a long time, but
we're respectable members of society, Mr. Unicorn Man.
I should have changed my name to the Unicorn Man. Oh well.
Nowadays, if you want to TP someone's house, you just swat them on the internet, and
there you go.
That doesn't have damage alone. Well, how are you guys doing? You guys got any plans for Halloween itself tomorrow night?
I am throwing a big, I shouldn't say big party, but a party. Trying to keep the numbers down because of the virus, but I'm having a few friends over. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Halloween. Yeah, this is my nighttime gear.
This onesie is pretty comfortable. I should wear it.
Man, I gotta tell you, this is my first onesie. These things are comfortable, man.
They are
They're comfy, man. Nice and warm.
It's a good weekend. We got a Halloween tomorrow, and then we got the Mandalorian today. So we have to good start.
Yeah, we got a good amount to talk about when it comes to the Mandalorian. And thanks everyone for joining in again. It's Chatooine. We talk about the news, topics in the fandom, and simply chat about Star Wars. So if you have any questions for us, make sure to leave them in the live chat or send a super chat question so you can be guaranteed an answer to your question before the show is over. And of course, the big news of the day and the week is that it's finally here. The Mandalorian Season 2 finally debuted on Disney Plus last night or this morning, depending on where you're at. And it's the first and longest show or longest episode in the series. And to say it was a hit with the Star Wars fandom is an understatement. So we're going to talk about that and more here on Chatooine. Comet Star, I'm sorry to disappoint. Yep, I'm wearing a mask. I have to. I have to keep my social distancing between Goldman and mainly Lunga. You know, we have to make sure everyone's okay.
Listen, the older ones, we're susceptible.
Yes. Save the Lunga. That's the goal here. Save the Lunga.
I'll be honest. I'm not sure about you, Lunga, but I am sweating my ass off right now already.
I'm doing okay. No, I'm doing okay. Remember, my office is in the basement, so it's cooler down here. So this is it's comfy.
Probably should turn on the AC, but oh well.
Yeah, that'd be smart. I can't even really see half the. I can't see you two that well, and I definitely can't see the comments with this. So I might make it halfway through the entire thing before I have to take this. Yeah. So we're going to kick things off with the first episode of Season 2 titled The Marshal. And warning, if you haven't seen the episode, first of all, you're not a Star Wars fan. We just have to we have to throw digs from the start.
Real Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Real Star Wars fans saw it the minute it came out.
Yeah, you would have been up at 3 a.m. like I was watching this thing. Drunk as a skunk.
I've watched it. I watched it 3 times already. So
3 times?
I'm twice.
Yeah, I'm twice as well. I did 3 a.m. and then me and my beautiful girlfriend watched it a few hours ago, and she loved it. And it was kind of, it's like watching Lord of the Rings with someone who's never watched it before, because she'll ask me questions like, "Hey, is that?"
It is a good film.
Yeah, should we? She was going to call the Tusken Raiders Jawas, and then or was going to call the Jawas Tauntauns. So I loved it. It was really adorable. Thank you very much for the super chat, Andrew. He says, "Is the Mandalorian for the time being the new face of Star Wars?" Lunga, what do you think?
I would say definitely. I mean, he is the most popular, most overall accepted Disney creation for the Disney era of Star Wars. And generally, I mean, I know you're always gonna have dissenters, but generally the sentiment is it's a very popular show among Star Wars fans. So yeah, I would say the Mandalorian, and not just the character, not just Din Djarin, but the world being created in this little microcosm of the corner of the galaxy. I think is the new face of Star Wars for right now.
I agree. What do you think, Goldman? You think Mandalorian's going to be the face of Star Wars for the next few years?
Oh, definitely. I would argue though that it's technically Baby Yoda who may be the face of Star Wars. But either one, I mean, the show. Yeah, there we go.
There he is.
How much was that? Isn't that like one of the expensive ones?
$1 at Target.
Oh, it looks really good. Isn't it like a $300 one?
It's a beanbag one, so it doesn't have or anything. But I mean, it's a good size. It's plastic head, but it's soft in here, so it was only $20 at Target.
That's cool. I might have to get one.
And it comes in its own little.
Mandalorian's definitely face. I mean, there's nothing else out right now, so I mean, Squadrons isn't going to be the face of Star Wars. And even when Obi-Wan does come out, it's going to be one season. I feel like it's kind of hard to make that the face of the franchise. And Mandalorian, I mean, we've heard it's going on for 4+ seasons. So assuming him and Baby Yoda are around the whole time, they're going to be the faces of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think that since season 1 came out, because that came out right before the Rise of Skywalker, and I feel like one of the reasons Rise of Skywalker had a better reception than I think it could have had without Mandalorian is that a lot of people felt good about the Mandalorian. It made you feel like you're actually watching the Star Wars from the original trilogy. And looking back on it now, like striking gold, striking gold twice is kind of hard. And normally when they do, like even when they made Star Wars, they were like, all right, the sequel to this is not going to be able to do what everyone thinks it's going to do because the sequels normally suck. When it came to season 2 of The Mandalorian, at least with this one, I think it still, did well. I think they nailed it. And I think that just shows that, yeah, this is going to be the face of Star Wars for at least until the new movie comes out in 2023.
Yeah, assuming the movies are decent.
Yeah, there's always that debate. I'm definitely gonna take my camera off and take the mask off.
It's getting too much.
We appreciate it though.
Yeah,
there is one comment from Zeus Skywalker. Star Wars only looks like he's about to say, "Let me look on you with my own eyes."
Oh yeah, no, that's kind of me doing like I'm trying to read the comments. I'm like,
you're just going like that all the time because you have to see like certain corners of the helmet.
Looks very familiar.
Cannot read this. I can. I feel old. All right. Yeah, I gotta stop my cam and get back to normal.
Oh, that was funny.
Oh my god! Now I can actually see. Great. All right. So the new episode came out, and I gotta ask, what did you guys think of it? Goldman, want to get your take first. When did you see it, and what did you think about it when you first saw it?
So I watched it this morning. I did not stay up till the time of the release. I watched it when I woke up. I set up a stream and I reacted to it, and it was a very good episode. I really enjoyed it. I like it didn't seem like one of those episodes. You know how with the first season, like the first, third, 7th, and 8th episodes, they were kind of like the main episodes. And then the other ones were kind of like the own story that somewhat progressed the plot. So this one really did feel like its own story. I mean, in terms of what I assume will be the grand story, the only thing that happened is he got the armor they got the Boba Fett armor and he met Cobb Vanth. And then we know Boba Fett's alive. But even with that, even though it's like its own contained story, I still thought it was a really fun episode. Especially compared to some of the standalone episodes from last season. I like the beginning, the one, I don't know, I love the one-eyed alien dude, and then the way when he was running away from Mando and Mando shot the hook at him, I thought that was hilarious. And then he went back to Tatooine. I was a little concerned about going back to Tatooine, but basically since it was all new locations, I mean, we were at Mos Eisley with the woman from the 5th episode of last season for like 2 minutes, and then he met then he went to Mos Pelgo. Is that what it was? New city we've never heard of, I believe.
Yeah.
And then met Cobb Vanth. And I've been very critical on this show about Boba Fett being in the show. But I really liked the way how Cobb Vanth had the armor. Because I I'm actually somewhat surprised that they didn't know that Mando didn't know it was like Boba Fett's armor. I feel like Boba Fett was like one of the famous bounty hunters, but maybe that's just been my headcanon and that's not what's accurate. But I really like the relationship between these two. At first it was like the classic Western, they're in the bar and he's like, only one of us is getting out of here alive. And then the crate dragon came, and I didn't notice it at first. Or I didn't know it was the crate dragon, but apparently that's like a big thing from KOTOR. I mean, I've never played the game, but
what? You've never played KOTOR?
Never have. I know, right?
Oh, you have to. It's something
everyone tells me I have to.
Yeah, like I didn't believe him at first, but it's great. Yeah, the Crate Dragon is from Knights of the Old Republic. Darth Revan fought it and killed it in a similar fashion with bombs too. But yeah, no, I think the Crate Dragon was a nice addition. A lot of things that fans of the expanded universe, canon, prequels, sequels would like. Was there anything that you noticed that kind of fan service wise that caught your eye?
There was. I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but when Mando's ready to, in quotes, like sacrifice himself to when he's next to the bantha with all the bombs, and he knocks Cobb Vanth's jetpack or Boba Fett's jetpack, and he goes flying away. That kind of reminded me of the way how Boba Fett died, right? Because Han accidentally hit the jetpack and then he went flying away. So that was a nice a little. I think that was intentional, like a little callback. But one of my favorite things of this episode, it's not really a callback or anything, but during the main sequence at the end, if you notice, it changed to a widescreen format. And it was like the first time we've really seen live action Star Wars completely widescreen. And it looked great. I mean, I think the budget for this season was probably higher because that dragon was there quite a bit and it looked really good. So yeah, the whole sequence was amazing to watch. And then of course the end sequence, one thing that was really interesting because I watched it first by myself and then I watched it with my roommates afterwards. And so they recognized the Boba Fett armor at first. And then at the end, when actual Boba Fett appeared, they didn't know. They're like, who's that? I'm like, that's Boba Fett. That's it's the same actor as Jango Fett. And you had to think about it. He's like, oh, that is Jango Fett. So I'm curious to see, like, does the casual viewer know that that's Boba Fett? Like we all do. I wonder if the casual viewer will know.
I don't think they will, but I don't think it matters either. I think this is so popular with fans that him coming out in probably episode 2 saying, I am, Boba Fett, I want my armor back kind of thing would be enough. Lunga, what did you think when you first saw this episode? You've seen it 3 times, so I think I'd say you like it.
I wasn't going to stay up all night and watch it, but I've been going to bed later, like around 2 a.m. And I decided, and it's because we don't get the exact time. It's random. It'll be like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's like weird. It's never the exact same time every week for some reason. But I'm like, well, let me check it before I go to bed. And I'm like, oh, it's there. So I sat down. I watched it. So I watched it at like 2 a.m. And then we were doing a watch party on my stream today for it. So we watched that at 2 p.m. today. And then right before I came down here with you guys, my girlfriend wanted to watch it. So I watched it with her. So yeah, I watched it 3 times. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. I saw this headline on Twitter, one person complaining, not complaining, but a review, and it just drives me nuts when people do this. It's like, she said, in the tweet, she said, the first episode wasn't horrible, but it felt too much. It felt more of a sci-fi Western for this premiere. I'm like, have you not read what the entire series is supposed to feel like? That's literally what it's. That means it succeeded. I don't know what the "but" means, but it's
have you seen Star Wars?
Yeah, have you seen Star Wars? That's what it's supposed to be. But yeah, they did really kind of double down on it. Him coming to town was just like, man riding a horse with no name. The way he came in, and the townspeople just staring at him as he's rolling through like he's on a slow horse, and he goes into the saloon. And then, of course, when Cobb Vanth pulls up in that armor, instantly you knew that armor. There's just, the dent on the helmet, the bullet dent on the helmet, that was it. And I knew immediately just from he started talking, just because I love Timothy Olyphant. I'm like, yep, that's Timothy Olyphant. It's Cobb Vanth. Before he even took his helmet off, I knew who it was. So I'm like, yeah. So I'll go, we were right on that. We predicted that. We're like, yeah, Cobb Vanth's going to be wearing his armor. And that's exactly what happened.
It happened word for word.
Yeah, and I liked. I don't know if it's just the actor, but I immediately liked the character of Cobb Vanth. You know what I mean? He seems like this good and honest guy that wants to try to help people. in this town, and yeah, he took the armor, but he, in his mind, he bought it. Even when he talks about killing the sand people, it's like, hey, I'm not just a murderer. They were attacking us. I had to protect, our people, and stuff like that. And then the whole thing he does when they're having that meeting, trying to talk them into, hey, we got to work with the sand people, with the Tuscans on this, and he explained it. So I like that character. Then we saw, of course, we finally saw Boba Fett at the end. A lot of people are thinking, that like how it's going to be this dichotomy between them. And I what's really interesting for me is, are we finally going to get that firm answer on is he considered a Mandalorian or not? Because in the legends, Jango was a Mandalorian, and by default that means Boba was. And then Filoni came out with his Clone Wars, and he talked to George. George's like, no, he's not really a Mandalorian. So then he made him not a Mandalorian, So like, now, do we know? You know what I mean? Is he going to? And I feel like it's setting that up because he has his armor now, and there's going to be some kind of confrontation. Bro, give me my armor. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, are you a Mandalorian? And I feel like question is going to have to be addressed. And I think that's a big point as well too. And I think too, one of the things we're talking about is I think he was biding his time, waiting for a chance. Because I think he saw that small town, this marshal was there, he had people around him all the time. I think he was waiting for a good time to do it. And now that Mando has it, and on his own, he thinks, okay, now's my chance to get my armor back.
It's funny that you mentioned that there's going to be like a confrontation between the two, because that's actually the title of the next episode for The Mandalorian, The Confrontation. So I think it ended on that kind of cliffhanger of we see Boba Fett kind of eyeing him from afar and is interested in getting his armor back somehow, some way. And I do think you're right, Lunga. I think we're going to kind of get an answer, or at least a discussion between Boba Fett and Din Djarin about him being an actual Mandalorian. Because, I mean, if we're going by genetics, I guess, Din Djarin's not a Mandalorian. He was raised by them, but he wasn't born into the Mandalorian tribe or family. So I think that they could find some commonality between that. I also like what you said about Cobb Vanth. What?
I just thought about this, because who are the Mandalorians now? It's the Creed thing, and it's a lot about orphans and foundlings. Boba is an orphan.
Oh yeah, so you're saying that it might be like primarily orphans that they're bringing into it now? Like,
yeah,
that's the new
because
way to do it?
they were decimated after that purge, and that's why it became more of a creed than a race. And they're taking in foundlings and rebuilding their order by teaching people this creed. And I would think they're going to do where Jango wasn't a Mandalorian, but Boba was, because he was.
I'm not sure if that's really entirely accurate that it became a creed after this purge, because Mando was adopted into the Mandalorian culture during what I'm assuming is the Clone Wars, based off of the flashbacks of last season. And as of Rebels, which takes place like 2 years before New Hope, there is no great purge or anything. So by that time, and Din Djarin Mando, he's already an adult. So when this great purge happens, he's already been a Mandalorian for maybe 20 years. So I think this Creed thing has been part of the Mandalorian culture for a while, and then maybe it's been more pronounced after the this purge, whenever we find out what that is. But we'll see.
Yeah, for me, it's just because we got to reconcile what we saw in Rebels, right? Yeah. And in Rebels, it wasn't like they were Mandalorians. They're from Mandalore. That's there was no talk about it wasn't a race. It's a creed. It wasn't anything like that. What we saw in Clone Wars or Rebels. Yeah. So something has to happen during that time for this to become more prominent, I guess you could say.
That's that's interesting. I didn't know the next episode was going to be called The Confrontation.
Yeah, that's the title.
A lot of people are assuming like there's going to be a big fight like between Mando and Boba Fett. Boba Fett wants his armor back. But the thought that crossed my mind is, why wouldn't Din Djarin just give Boba Fett his armor back? I mean, it is Boba Fett's armor.
Has to be a Mandalorian.
Yeah, maybe because you also have to think that Cobb Vanth got the armor.
Bought it fair and square.
Yeah, and he may say that, oh, well, I've heard about Jango Fett. He's not a real Mandalorian. He stole that armor, so you don't deserve it. So
that's true.
Yeah,
I wonder if they'll go that route, though.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'll go back to the quick face reveal for you guys who are asking. Hi. It's Star Wars only here. Nice to meet you all.
It's so funny.
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint. This is my face. I have to wear a mask to, social distance, fight the coronavirus. So this is me. This is who I am. Please accept me.
He is being socially responsible, yo.
Yes. I have to look out for the elderly here in Florida because they're very common out here.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to talk about after I take off this mask, one line that I think that has gone over the head over everybody was one specific thing that Cobb Vanth said, and it was the greatest line in the entire show, or for this episode, and yeah, for the entire show of all Mandalorian episodes. There's that scene where like the Tusken Raiders are like handing bombs to the civilians, and they're handing it back to like townspeople and everything, and like loading it up on the banthas, and then one of them drops it, and they have that little back and forth, and then he breaks it up, and he goes. He's like, it's not that big a deal. Like, it was an accident. And then he goes back to Mando, and he's like, it's gonna be great.
That's great.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be great.
I thought of the same thing, dude. I'm so glad you
Am I
brought it
the
up.
only one who thought that was going to be like? I thought that was intentional by Jon Favreau. I was like, there's no way, because even my girlfriend, when she watched it, was like, he said it exactly the way Lucas said it. She was like, there's no way that wasn't. I really think if Jon Favreau watches the channel, then I appreciate it, because I know we use that joke a lot around here. I do myself, but I mean, the levels of meme behind that is astounding, and I really think that he put that in there on purpose. Am I alone on this? If you guys think it was just a coincidence, just quality writing from Jon Favreau?
I do think it was a coincidence. That's a very like specific reference to like a documentary. If maybe we'll find out if they do a second season of the like the Mando documentaries they did during the spring last year for the first season, and they revealed it. That'd be pretty funny. But I think that's stretching it a little bit. But I do think it's a coincidence. But I still thought of the same thing. That was hilarious.
I would really hope that like they interviewed George Lucas for it, and they were like, "Hey, did you notice that line?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm the one who actually recommended that. I asked him to put that in." Andrew Harris says it perfectly. It's gonna be great. I'll play it again for you, Andrew, just because you put in the super chat. Got to get your money.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be great.
It would have been funnier if Mando actually responded, and he's like, "That's gonna be great." It's like he went back
He walks away.
So this is going to be the new. I have a bad feeling about this, right?
I would never miss a Star Wars movie, show, anything, as long as they always put that in. I would do that. Matthew Kelly says maybe Jon Favreau possibly watch your channel. I don't think he watched the channel. He might have watched the show and seen like, these guys have a good point. Hey guys, don't forget, me, Lunga, and the Goldman all have cameos in this season. We're in episode 3, so look out for us. We'll be there. I'll point us out when it happens.
Look for the Wookiee.
Look for the Wookiee.
Actually, my boy Claude, he had his cameo in the first episode. He played that Tusken Raider that baited the bantha and then ended up getting eaten by the dragon.
Oh geez, the first one to die. That was so sad. He was running away, and you're like, oh, he's gonna eat the bantha, and then like just ate the poor Tusken.
You thought that was sad? I thought that was hilarious.
It was utterly fantastic, especially how it just like came out and just turned. Just went right for him.
He's like, I already had a bantha yesterday. I want some Tusken Raider meat today.
The best part about it is they watch that happen, and there's just a pause, and he's like, "Yeah, they're looking for better ways." What was that?
And then Cobb Vanth is like, "Is that really the scale?" Looking at like the scale.
I don't think it's the scale.
Yeah. Lunga, you touched on it earlier. I will say I truly did enjoy the character of Cobb Vanth. Like, I thought going into this, because I did not like the Aftermath trilogy books. It's probably one of the best Star Wars canon books over the past 5 years, but it really didn't do much for me. And Cobb Vanth, you didn't know anything about him, but in this, like you were saying, he's just kind of like the town hero. Mm-hmm. He's just kind of the, like, as they call the episode, the marshal of the place. And he seems like an honest, humble going guy, but he's got that kind of space Western country vibe to him. Mm-hmm. And as a guy from Texas, I can recognize the kind of like Southern accent he was going for pretty easily. And I would, when he says at the end, he talks to Mando and he says something like, I hope our paths cross again. I truly do hope that's the case. I remember that.
That's what happens in The Mandalorian. Everyone he meets, he runs into again.
Yeah, I agree, and I would hope that it actually, when it comes to like something like Boba Fett, I wouldn't mind like Boba Fett and Cobb Vanth teaming up, depending on how it goes with Boba Fett. Like I thought going into this season that we would learn that Cobb Vanth has the armor, he wants to keep the armor and everything. He's like a villain or an anti-hero, and then Boba Fett comes in and like the entire series, because there's rumored to be a series about Boba Fett and a lot of credentials to that. I would thought that Boba Fett and Cobb Vanth would go at it for an entire season trying to get that armor, basically who's fighting for that armor. But I think they would be a good little like, buddy cop kind of series where Cobb constantly like looks at the armor and it's like, oh, I liked it. No, you don't want to see that.
No, I do not want an anti-hero sympathetic Boba Fett. Listen, you already did that when you created Din Djarin. Don't do that with Boba Fett. Boba Fett needs to be the slimy bounty hunter who only cares about himself. I don't want the heart of gold. I don't want any of that, okay? Boba Fett needs to be Boba Fett and just stay Boba Fett. That's it.
You know what was funny? When I saw Boba Fett at the end, he looked really menacing. Like he had a serious look on his face. He had a scar. I think he didn't even have eyebrows. Like he just looked really menacing. And I just keep having flashbacks to Return of the Jedi. And just him going, and then rolling down in Sarlacc. It's hard to take it. When I think about that, it's hard to take Boba Fett seriously, but here they did make him look pretty menacing. And one thing about Cobb Vanth I want to say, and it's such a small thing, but I love it so much, is that, again, you mentioned how Cobb Vanth was in the Aftermath trilogy, and he wasn't really in it. He was in one of the interlude chapters. Mm-hmm. For those of you who haven't read the book, it's a trilogy that's an ongoing story, but maybe 1 out of every 5 chapters, they have these interlude chapters, which it's like 10 pages of some random thing going on in the galaxy. Like there's one about Jar Jar after Return of the Jedi, and he's like chilling on Naboo. And Cobb Vanth was in one of those, I believe. I think it was only one. And the fact that the first live action Star Wars show, that Jon Favreau was willing to just take a character from one chapter of a novel and put him into the live action story, it just makes someone like me who appreciates the canon, who reads a lot of the books, it just makes me really happy that the creators are willing to just make the whole universe seem that much more connected. Like they could have easily made Cobb Vanth a new character and named him Joe Schmo or something, but that since they were willing to tie it in with the novel, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it builds the connection for people with the canon, because it seems like mainly when it comes to the sequel trilogy, and I know me, Lunga, and I think even you, Goldman, have had problems with the way like there will be a book or like something about a Ahsoka novel and the Clone Wars. It seems like they've made a pattern of not adhering to the canon at all. I think Jon Favreau almost went out of his way to adhere to the new canon with Cobb Vanth coming in.
And with that case, it's not so much like there was nothing at risk in terms of contradiction, but he went out of his way to make it tie in even more, which is something I really appreciate.
Yeah.
So yeah,
not only that, I'll go one step forward. I made this prediction earlier, and I'm going to stick with this prediction.
Ooh.
I really feel much like, and Filoni knows he did this. I mean, there's ego with all of them, okay? He knows that he made the prequels more palatable. He made Anakin Skywalker more beloved.
A good character.
A good character. Right. Even though there's a lot of complaints about Anakin specifically in those movies and all the other stuff that went in the prior, he made them good. He made them people like it, appreciate it more. I really think they're using this now, not completely, but it is going to be a big part of a vehicle to try to put a more cohesive tie between all 3 trilogies and bring them all together. And I really think they're going to, because everyone was dissatisfied with the whole Snoke thing, right? Because that's it's one thing that keeps eating everybody alive. And I think even people who like this, I'm not sure if Goldman, if you agree, but people that liked it, I've seen it, that they're like, the Snoke thing doesn't make any sense to me. How do you go from this? He's so much power, then he's a clone, and then he's Strandcast, and he's a Strandcast. We've learned that from the comic books and stuff coming up. He's a Strandcast. We're learning more about this Strandcast stuff, that it's like a clone, but it's not a clone. And we know that they had to find specific things to clone that can be able to use the Force with such power the way the Emperor would, or a proxy, if you will, for the Emperor. I have a feeling that the whole thing is Baby Yoda, the whole thing with the cloning, the Kaminoans helping him, and now the Empire chasing him, is that this was the beginnings of making a Snoke and be a new vehicle for the Emperor to come into. And that's what I think this whole thing with Baby Yoda is about, and they're going to try to tie it together and make it all work.
I really like that prediction, and mainly because the guy who plays Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito, has hinted that we're going to get a lot of answers in seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a pretty interesting direction to take it. And like you said, I think that would help kind of fix some of the plot holes, if you will, in the sequels, or just some inconsistencies that a lot of people don't like. Well, one thing that I want to point out is Valkyrie King. Thank you very much for the super chat, buddy. He's been a long-time fan of the channel. He says that some morons think that it's not Boba Fett in the end, but Rex. Do either of you believe that at all? I mean, he doesn't have the white hair. He has that long rifle right there. I mean,
it technically could be Rex, but I think the implication, it's heavily implied that it's Boba Fett. I mean, they showed his armor. I mean, you see a clone wandering around Tatooine where we last saw him die. It's Boba Fett. I mean, technically, if they really wanted to, they could say Rex shaved his white beard and his white hair from Rebels, and that could be him. But no, it is like 99.9% sure it's Boba Fett.
Yeah. I gotta agree, because, like I said, thematically, there's a lot of parallels where it could be Rex. I mean, he's basically wasn't hiding or trying to live in exile away from everybody. Tatooine is a perfect place to do that. There's a lot of ties with Tatooine. Everyone comes back to Tatooine for something. So it could technically be him. You know what I mean? But like Goldman said, especially if you think about the first episode, they give us the big surprise reveal in the last split-second shot of this first episode, what they did with the child. They did the same thing with this. If that's Rex, it completely destroys the entire impact of what's going on in that episode.
Agreed.
So I don't think, for that reason, I don't think it's Rex. Now, I wouldn't call people who think it is morons, because, dude, for all we know, it could be. It could happen. Yeah. But I think the odds are it's way more in favor that it's Boba Fett.
Oh, this question's interesting, and I'm going to shoot it down now just because I know it's a thing that everyone wants nowadays, of Palpatine. I do not want Palpatine.
I'll answer this. No. And the main reason, I made a video today. The whole video is basically about ways you could tie in the Mandalorian with the sequel trilogy. And it did cross my mind, of course, cloning, Palpatine's a clone, the whole Snoke thing. A Snoke cameo is possible, but a Palpatine cameo is almost impossible, because no one knew that Palpatine was alive in the First Order. No one. Like, Snoke didn't know who Palpatine was. Kylo Ren obviously didn't know. The whole thing about Palpatine was that he created Snoke, and then Snoke served as like the proxy ruler of the First Order. And then once Palpatine was, in quotes, ready, and it still doesn't make sense. But once Palpatine was ready, then he would call Kylo Ren and be like, yo, you want my Star Destroyers? You just have to go kill Rey first. So that's like the whole thing with Palpatine. So no one can make contact with Palpatine. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Palpatine's still like dead, or he's like literally just like sitting somewhere like he was in The Rise of Skywalker. So no, we can't see Palpatine. I do think it would be really interesting if this whole cloning thing did tie into Snoke. I think it would be a neat way to tie in the Mandalorian with the sequels. But what I want to see that would help tie in the trilogies is I think they should show the incompetence of the New Republic. Like, they did talk about how after the Empire fell, like when they did the flashback scene, then those it was like some mining guild or whatever came in and killed all those people. And maybe some throughout the series, like the Empire or this Imperial remnant gets a little more powerful, and then the New Republic still just doesn't do anything about it. And then maybe it's the Mandalorians that end up taking out this sector of the Empire. So then it kind of helps us realize that in the sequel trilogy, it makes a little bit more sense that something like the First Order was able to happen because the New Republic just didn't care, and they were so incompetent that another military organization could form. So that's my preferred way of how you would tie in the Mandalorian with the sequels. But the Snoke thing is also fairly neat.
Yeah, I don't want too many cameos. One thing, we all three of us had talked about this for a long time on the rumored cameos for the show, of like, we don't want it to always just be, you remember this person, you like them. You remember this person, you like them. And I really, personally, I wouldn't want them to go into the New Republic stuff at all, even showing the incompetence of them, because what I think works for this show so far very well is that it feels like it's a story in a big universe, but it's small scale. We're focused on just Mandalorian, the Mando Din Djarin finding a home for Baby Yoda, and the story is obviously going to continue to expand into a bigger way. You know, finding out who the Jedi are around this time, if he's going to meet Ahsoka, which we all kind of know by this point he will. What's going to happen with Boba Fett? What's going on with Baby Yoda, the child? What's the name of Baby Yoda? Who is Moff Gideon? There are questions that we have, but it's nothing like, you know, the good side of the Force or the dark side of the Force. It's nothing like that. And I think if we get into that, even with the politics, it would kind of rub some people the wrong way. Me personally, I know I would not want it. Benji asked, are we 100% that Ahsoka will be in this season? I think it's 100%. Even the there was another Disney Plus account last week or the week before, a German Disney Plus account confirmed that she was Rosario Dawson, who's supposed to play her, was casted as Ahsoka Tano. And then I think yesterday or the day before, another Disney Plus account, like official one. The Indian one. They said like, yeah, she's casted. Like they basically said, yeah, Ahsoka's live action in this. What do you think about it? Like, what do you hope from her? So yeah, it's if it's not 100%, it is 99.9999999% repeating. I mean,
very, very close to 100.
Yeah, I mean, it's they could pull a Hail Mary and then like replace her with the scenes that they shot of Goldman playing Ahsoka, and you know, can change things up.
Yeah, this is the thing. Now, the thing with this is, I really don't know, because I couldn't find it anywhere on the Instagram account, but this is what I saw when someone
this is the one.
Yeah. So it says, you know, what does Ahsoka Tano's live action avatar look like? Rosario Dawson is set to play the famous Clone Wars Jedi. Who is she? Is Sasha Banks in for a cameo or joining in the action? It says Star Wars The Mandalorian, Disney Plus Hotstar Premium, which is the Indian version of it. But I tried reverse imaging this. I could not find it anywhere. I'm thinking maybe they took it down. Possibly.
I'm shocked that Disney would let something like this even go. Like that's just blatant like spoilers.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering the credibility of this, because I could not find it anywhere as a reverse image search. It was a screenshot on Twitter. Good. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it looks official, but I mean,
Photoshop isn't that hard to use, though.
That's very true. It's very true. Speaking of cameos, I like this question that Victor has of if Sabine is confirmed for season 2. I don't think she is, but that's the one that everyone's questioning. The one you just brought up, Lunga, Sasha Banks. Everyone thinks that that's Sabine, and that's where I get into the territory of like, I don't want everyone and their mother to become a cameo for season 2. But I want to pitch this to you two guys and kind of get your reaction to it. To me, it seems like the route they may go for season 2 is every episode, and it may not be every single episode, like all 8 of them. But just from the vibes that I got with this one of him meeting Cobb Vanth, kind of becoming cool with him and everything, I have an odd feeling that the next 7 or maybe even 6 episodes up until the finale are going to be Din Djarin going around and just running into specific characters. He's eventually going to run into Rex. He's eventually going to run into Boba Fett, which is, you know, next week's episode. He's going to run into Ahsoka. I just feel like he's going to run into a specific character every episode, and it's kind of going to be about Din Djarin, the baby, and that other character that he's meeting. Do you guys agree with me at all?
I think it's going to be something similar. I hope it's not that literally every episode where he like finds a clue about the whereabouts of like an actual Mandalorian tribe. And then he, like the beginning of the episode, he finds like the clue and then he gets dragged into a whole conflict. And then like, I don't want that to be every episode. I do think it's going to be most of them. Maybe one episode he gets a clue and then he actually finds the Mandalorians and then maybe they get killed or something. So I do think you're mostly right. I just hope it's not the case for every episode, but probably most.
Possibly. I do want to say one thing. The next episode, it's called Confrontation. It may not be involving. I honestly don't think we're going to see Boba again until much later. I could be wrong, but I don't think we're going to see him again until much later. The confrontation could literally be the confrontation he has with the New Republic when he gets shot down on that ice planet. There's many things that could be a confrontation. It doesn't necessarily have to be Boba for this sense. So I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I think he's going to be running into a bunch of people. As far as this, I know people have that worry, and you have that worry. You hope they're not just plugging him in just for, hey, remember this? Remember me? The thing is this: every person that you've heard, except for, Boba, they're kind of putting in, but every person you heard is tied together, and you can't do one without the other ones, or needing to know something about the other one at some point.
Yes.
Ahsoka, because last we saw Ahsoka, she was leaving with Sabine to find Ezra. Okay, that's the last time we saw Ahsoka. So if they're bringing Ahsoka in, Sabine is going to be a natural at some point. She's also the person who gave the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, who is the last person to have the Darksaber before Moff Gideon has it. So all these things are inexorably tied. You know what I mean? And Rex is tied to the hip with Ahsoka as well. So really, they're going to be needed. You know what I mean? The only thing that seems like it's fan service, and so far they're doing okay, is Boba Fett, because that's actually not needed for any of the story.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like a lot of the what I deemed fan service of this episode were simple things like even this image of like the little creatures that you saw from Attack of the Clones, the pod racer that Cobb Vanth used, that's Anakin's. There's so many, the crate dragon. There's so many like very small. I think this is where I got a little upset with Dave Filoni's episode that was on Tatooine with Chapter 5 of season 1, where Mando went to Tatooine and everything, and a lot of it was like, oh, we can't get her, she has the high ground, and he like looks at the camera for a second or two, like it's just stuff that I was like, all right, it's too on the nose. This stuff was just kind of like matter of factly, like, oh, they're just driving to a location and they're not making a big deal out of him using the Anakin Skywalker pod racer from The Phantom Menace. I really did enjoy that aspect of it. Another thing I want to mention, and probably move on to the last two topics in the next few minutes, but one thing I noticed was that crap, I might have lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, no, that's what it was. Boba Fett at the end of this episode. I remember a lot of us thought that in Chapter 5, Dave Filoni's episode of The Mandalorian, that ending scene was Cobb Vanth in the Boba Fett armor. I actually think it was this Boba Fett right here. He has the cape. He may have the boots and everything. I think he was the one who walked up to that body of with Fennec, the girl bounty hunter who died.
Fennec Shan.
Fennec Shan. Yeah, I actually think this is Boba Fett, like the actual Boba Fett without his armor, walking up to her, which does make it curious on what is his goal. If it's to get his armor, sure, big deal. But he could have done that anytime, like literally anytime. He could have taken on Cobb Vanth, and maybe because he has the armor, he would have lost. But I think there's a difference between Cobb Vanth's armor, or the Boba Fett armor, and the Beskar armor that Mando has. So why do you guys think that he was walking up to the fallen body of Fennec?
I can't say exactly how she ties into it. However, someone mentioned here too. Zeus says now Boba's not letting Mando leave Tatooine without a confrontation. Wink. Here's the thing: is everyone forgetting the way Boba operated in the original trilogy? Boba's a tracker. He is not someone who jumps on the first opportunity he sees. He bides his time. He tracks and waits to the opportunity to entrap someone. So Boba plays the long game. I think he's playing the long game. That's why I don't think we're going to see him until later. That's why this thing with Fennec Shan was probably part of his tracking, probably to fix, because he probably doesn't know where his armor's at. You know what I mean? It was part of his tracking to figure out where it was, and he knew that she was tied with a Mandalorian, and then a Mandalorian returns. He hears about this, or has been tracking it, and he follows the Mandalorian, and he follows him and sees him going to Cobb Vanth, and he sees he has his armor, and then the armor leaves with the Mandalorian. He's been tracking. That's what I feel.
That's an interesting thought. I had the same question. That thought didn't cross my mind at first, but I think it makes more sense definitely, because I was wondering if we obviously see Boba Fett watching the Mandalorian with his armor. It made me wonder, like, why didn't Boba Fett just get the armor before? I mean, you talked about how like Cobb Vanth was with the whole city of people, but I feel like Boba Fett wouldn't care. He would just go and like either kill Cobb Vanth and just take his armor back and leave. Or I don't know if Boba Fett would ask, but it could be that. So maybe he just didn't know where his armor was. I mean, Mos Pesco, is that what it was? Pelgo, something like that. Pelgo. Is in the middle of nowhere, so maybe Boba Fett just didn't know about that little city. I mean, it was not even on the Tatooine map, so
he could have been convalescing this whole time. I mean, he escaped from the Starlight Pit somehow, right? He was obviously incapacitated for the Jawas to get his armor. Okay.
Yeah.
For all I know, he could have been seriously injured and recuperating for years. You know what I mean? Completely, unknowing of what's around him, what was going on. when we look at that map, where this place is compared to Mos Eisley, is not like it's, a hop, skip, and a jump, or Jabba's palace, because we don't even know. I mean, we got to get a full map, because he was around, where they're over the Sarlacc pit, which I'm assuming is in close vicinity to Jabba's palace. Where is that in vicinity to Mos Pelgo? He may not have known where to even begin. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and the fact that, and maybe the fact that he hears a Mandalorian had arrived on Tatooine started the trail for him. He's like, this is a good place to start as any, and he followed Mando.
Also, we don't know exactly when Cobb Vanth got the Boba Fett armor. I mean, obviously it was sometime after Return of the Jedi, but
right.
I mean, there's a 5-year time period, so it could be any time period.
It looks like literally right after, because the attack, they were watching the Death Star blowing up.
Yeah.
And the attack happened that night. So
yes, you're right. And then he wandered for a few days, and then
Makes
right. Sense.
So he got that within a week after the end of Return of the Jedi. So he's had that armor for a good 5 years.
Yeah. So I think it makes perfect sense that Boba Fett, it wouldn't be as easy to find the armor.
Right. But a Mandalorian landing on Tatooine, people hear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Word spreads about that, and he found Cab Vanth in Mos Pelgo because Mando showed up on Tatooine.
Yeah. I like the train of thought, and I think that's all accurate. I think we'll find out a lot more, at least over the next 2 episodes. Last question I want to do on the topic of the Mandalorian is this one from Dutastic. He says, "What if this season Baby Yoda gets captured and they take his Force powers away and use it to make Snoke?" I personally would not like that route, but what do you guys think? Do you want? I feel like it would be a little, not overpowered, but a little too much on the realm of. It reminds me of this awful show that I watched called Avatar Korra, where like there's a guy who takes away bending from people. I'm sorry, Goldman, I cannot. That's a whole nother topic in of itself. But like people could take away bending and whatnot, and it just kind of lost the mystical aspect of it. So, what do you guys think about that?
I despise that idea that you could remove someone's Force powers. I mean, it's one thing, like obviously in the expanded universe, there was the those worms that had a really complex name. It was like the Ysalamari or something. Those made you couldn't use the Force around those worms.
There were nullifiers.
Yes, but they didn't like permanently take away someone's Force.
Just in your vicinity,
that was a little like OP. If you could just remove someone's Force powers, that would be. I don't like that at all. So I hope that wouldn't be the case.
I don't think that's what they're going with. Because remember, everything with Baby Yoda, they're talking about they needed the genetic material. That was the most important thing. Is they needed genetic material. I don't know if they're going to use the M word. Okay, if they're going to use the M word, if midichlorians are making a comeback,
I wouldn't mind it.
But it's obviously going to be encoded in their genetics, in their blood, in their genetic code. There's going to be these midichlorians, or his genetic code and his genetic material is what they need most likely to lead towards this possible theory of mine with the Snoke and Palpatine's body. I don't think they're stealing the Force from him, but I think he could end up dying from what they need to do to get it.
I have one more Mandalorian question because it crossed my mind the other day. So in the first episode, the Baby Yoda's with the Niktos, and according to the canon, after Jabba died, the Hutts kind of just fell out of power, and the Niktos took over as like the main gang of the Star Wars galaxy. Do you think it will ever be addressed as to why the Niktos had Baby Yoda in the first place?
Personally, no, because, well, actually, yeah. And the only reason I say yes is because we don't need it for the story, and therefore Star Wars Lucasfilm Publishing Group is probably going to capitalize on that. They've had a habit in the Star Wars universe where like that droid that had a bad motivator in A New Hope got its own story in the expanded universe. Like they just want to turn everything into a little minute detail and explain every possible detail that we can get. I think eventually, when the entire story of The Mandalorian is over, or maybe in the last season or two, like 3 and 4, when we're supposed to get answers, I think that's when we'll get that kind of answer. But right now, I don't think it's relevant to the overarching story. What do you say, Lunga?
It's not relevant, I don't think. It's going to involve money, most likely. You know what I mean? They probably did it for a ransom, and the Empire wasn't ready to pay a ransom. They want to get it back. They'd rather pay a bounty hunter to get it back than probably pay the exorbitant ransom that they were offering to get it. So I think it was just a money thing or power play, most likely. And so, I mean, could they make a story out of it? Sure. Did they need to? Nah.
All right. So last question on the Mandalorian topic, and we'll move on to the news about The Force Unleashed 3. Valkyrie King says, among Star Wars music, where does the Mando rank for you guys? Personally, I think it is better than probably... I don't think it beats the original 6 films from Lucas, because I love John Williams, but he didn't use the London Symphony Orchestra for the sequel films, and Solo had an awful score, and Rogue One was also forgettable. So I think it's, I mean, of course, in the top 10, but definitely top 7. I mean, it beats all the new Star Wars films for me, and I think you could argue that it could be Attack of the Clones as well, because there's nothing truly memorable from Attack of the Clones, in my opinion. And maybe even Return of the Jedi, because the Yub Nub song at the end, whatever. But it's hard to beat the John Williams score, but it's up there. What do you guys have to say?
I don't know. I've never really ranked my Star Wars music. I mean, obviously, all Star Wars music, most of the music's so great. I mean, I agree with you on Solo and Rogue One; those weren't that good. But I mean, anything with John Williams is amazing to me. I mean, you got the prequels, the originals, and I like a lot of the sequel tracks. Maybe that's just my bias. And the Mandalorian theme is very good. So yeah, it's Star Wars music is just like one of those things that everyone agrees is amazing. So I mean, they're all kind of up there for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of similar with you. Star Wars Only. It's like, for me, the original trilogy soundtrack is great. I love the prequel trilogy too. Soundtrack, I think it's really good. The sequel trilogy, not so much. Solo, not so much. Rogue One was decent, but yeah, I would say this is right up there underneath the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. It's better than any of the new Disney canon stuff. Let's put it that way for scores.
100%. Well, on to the last 2 bits of news that we have to talk about. There was only really 2 pieces of news this week for Star Wars, and one of them was a brand new rumor from our good friend, if you will, Daniel Richman, who says that The Force Unleashed 3 is in early development from EA, and it's hopefully coming in the near future. And we got to remember that EA's contract goes out in 2023, and their game was canceled. The Force Unleashed 3 was canceled after Disney bought Lucasfilm. But before that, I don't want people to think that LucasArts was like some saint of a company. They had a lot of production problems before LucasArts even shut down. So, Lunga, I want to ask you first, of course, if you played the first 2 Force Unleashed games, and also, do you want to see a third one by EA?
I did play the first 2, and if we're talking about as a gamer, not as a Star Wars fan, the games are great. They were fun. They were fun to play. And unlike Fallen Order, I like the mechanics of Force Unleashed. You know what I mean? It was much easier for me to play. Yeah, I liked it better than the mechanics. Listen, dude, I'm old. Okay, this Dark Souls mechanic crap, man, where it's like. And even Squadrons. I was so hyped on Squadrons. It's horrible that a game I love so much I hate.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with both of them.
It's like, this game is amazing, but I can't get good. So that's the problem I have with it. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was great. I mean, to me, I guess the only issue I have with it is, don't we have enough complications with continuity right now in canon? Do we really need this very confusing aspect of the Star Wars universe thrown in again?
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the question I was even going to ask Goldman of, like, if we do a Force Unleashed 3, is that going to be canon? Is it going to be expanded universe? Goldman, what's your take on this? Do you want a third one? Do you want a third Force Unleashed 3? Confusing us with canon and expanded universe? What's your take on this?
I would be surprised if they would spend a lot of money on making a video game that's not part of the canon, especially if it has a campaign. So this rumor I do find hard to believe, because if you're titling something The Force Unleashed 3, then it implies that it's a sequel to the second story, right? If they were to just do something like Battlefront, where they just called Star Wars The Force Unleashed EA, and they kind of retold the story, that would be one thing. But if you're going to do a third story, then if you continue that story, then it's somewhat going to be all canon. And I don't think there's that many like contradictions within the canon. Like there's a few smaller ones, but nothing really major. If you bring in the story of Starkiller and the story of the first 2 Force Unleashed games, those are pretty big events that do alter the canon in significant ways. So I don't think this is going to happen. I would be shocked if it does.
I would be shocked too, mainly because this is EA, and trusting them with a single player story game is interesting. Mainly something like this, which the rumors about the third Force Unleashed 3 was, or the third Force Unleashed, was that it was going to be open world. Yoda was, I remember slightly hearing, this may have been through the grapevine of things, that Yoda was going to be a playable character as well. But I mean, one of the reasons I am not against this is you guys got to remember the ending to the second game is that, you know, Vader got captured by Starkiller and he was getting hunted by Boba Fett. And then from what we heard through the story about the third game was that, you know, Vader being on that ship was kind of like similar to Darth Maul in season 7 of the Clone Wars, where, you know, shit went down. You know, like Vader caused a lot of torment for Starkiller. And I'd also like to see Sam Witwer come back and do, you know, his Star Wars work. He did amazing as Starkiller. He looks great. And also the graphics have really improved over the past, geez, it's been 10 years since the second one came out. I mean, the second one came out when 2010.
I think so.
I think like a week or two ago. So I mean, the anniversary came not too long after this rumor came out. I think, or right after, or right before the rumors started circulating. The reason I would believe this is because I don't think EA is in the good grace of the fans right now for Star Wars or gamers. I think the Fallen Order game did pretty well for them, but I think in general, EA kind of had a dud with Squadrons. So I think this would be a way to get the fans back on their side. And also I think it'd be a way for them to boost sales and tell Disney, hey, look, we're actually still doing pretty good and we want to keep the contract going because, you know, a lot of fans are interested in the products we have to make. And here's another pitch. Do you guys think this could be a reboot? It could be a third Force Unleashed game, but it's actually rebooting the series. I mean,
I think that would be more likely.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be titled Force Unleashed 3 then. It would be something like Battlefront where it's just like Star Wars: The Force Unleashed EA, and then they retell the story of Starkiller. I don't think I would be shocked.
I think he's way off on this. I think I'm kind of. This is Daniel RPK.
Yeah, I think from Twitter. Is that his Twitter handle?
Yeah. I'm kind of losing faith in him. I
have too. This is the one that's kind of putting me over the edge of kind of like, all right, maybe I don't believe you anymore, kind of thing. But
it could literally be a source talking about another Star Wars game in production, and this, and there might be some links being made to this title when it not being this title at all. You know what I mean? And I think that's more likely. And if for some reason it is, I think if they're going to do it, a reboot would be smarter instead of trying to stick to something that's not even canon, and it makes it even more confusing for fans in a very confusing time as it is for Star Wars. I don't think it'd be a smart move. And I really don't think, I don't see Lucas going with this right now. I think it's a bad move.
No, I'm on the fence. I wouldn't call it a bad move. I would call it a very bold move that I would actually endorse a little bit, because to me, it shows that EA would be willing to make another single player game. For me, it would also be, you know, the inner, like, I think 11 or 12-year-old when this game came out, the second one, wanting to actually see how the story with Starkiller concluded. And also the third point I want to make is this could open up a really interesting can of worms of Star Wars continuing the stories of the expanded universe, but also having its own canon. Because, you know, for years now, we've been arguing about, you know, expanded universe and stuff being canon, not canon. But then before the expanded universe was officially not canon by Disney, Lucas himself would say, you know, I got my films, and there's that world, and then there's, you know, these books that make me money, and I don't really give a shit about those, but I like the films that make me money. I really think that it would please a lot of fans, like the diehard EU fans who are never going to let go of Disney getting rid of the expanded universe. I think it would have pleased a lot of them if Lucasfilm was like, you know what, we're going to continue the stories. It's going to be a very, very slow process. I mean, like an expanded universe book every few years, but it's always something like this. We're finishing the Starkiller story. We're continuing the story of Republic Commando in the video game aspect. Like, they're going to continue those stories and even give us like the Battlefront 3 that they were making back in 2008. I think this would be an interesting can of worms to open. What do you guys have to say?
I'm not sure if I would agree with you that it would make expanded universe fans happy. If they were to continue, because I feel like I've spoken to a few friends that are big EU guys and hate most of what Disney's done. And I asked them, I'm like, would you want them to do another KOTOR? And they're like, no, because I don't trust anything Disney does. So I feel like this isn't for everyone, but for the passionate Disney Star Wars haters, they'll be like, oh no, I don't want Disney touching my expanded universe. Stay away from that. So yeah, I would be, I still don't think this is going to happen. I would be genuinely shocked if this would happen, more so than any of the rumored shows that we talked about. But yeah, I don't think this is happening.
Final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think so either. And he's got a point about that. They like when the Bane rumors were coming out, you know, and other stuff. They're like, no, don't touch my Bane. I don't want Disney touching Bane. They're gonna mess them up. They're gonna ruin Bane. That's like they did everything else. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. And it's like, it's not gonna make them happy. Because I think there's gonna be a lot of just residual. Meaning, even if it's good, they're gonna hate it just because Disney put it out. You know what I mean? They'll find something to hate about it, but. I don't know, man. Of all the things, even though you pointed up KOTOR, they said they don't want to touch it, but to me, KOTOR would be a better thing to bring back than Force Unleashed. You know, and not because I didn't like the game. I like Force Unleashed. I thought it was pretty cool. He was way too OP, but it was cool. But as far as Star Wars fan wise, not gaming or game mechanics or liking a game, Star Wars it's like. Did that people really care about Starkiller that much as in Star Wars canon? I mean, I never didn't as far as canon is concerned.
I didn't either.
I mean, one could argue he was the original whiny teen trying to follow Vader's footsteps as opposed to a Kylo Ren because, he quite literally looked like a knockoff version of Eminem who was always yelling about his girlfriend or something like that, you know? Like, that's kind of our Star Wars universe version.
What am I? Am I a clone of me? I don't know.
Where is she?
It's Jerry Seinfeld in space. What's happening? Where am I? Am I a clone? Am I real? I don't know.
Oh man. Well, I don't think we'll ever get it. Thank you, Raz. He says this is the way. I agree 100%. This is the way. Thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. I'm not sure we're gonna get that Force Unleashed 3, but one day make it a conclusion to that story. The last topic that we have is a little tidbit of news. This is kind of a funny one that I wanted to discuss with you guys, and I'll play the clip in a second. It's Kanye West. He went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and this was what a lot of people who like Joe Rogan, like myself, were looking forward to this because it's been talked for about a year now, and finally happened. And they talked about the Star Wars prequels and the sequels. So let's take a listen to what they had to say.
Talking about the Disney Star Wars movies, that then it's not a work of art. It's a formula. Like 2 + 2 is 4. Let's put those together. We'll make some money. Instead of the original Star Wars, which was the hero's journey, which was like a Joseph Campbell book. It's like there was a beauty and a purity to it. It's an expression. Like someone comes up with an idea and they bring it to fruition, and then you get to watch and you're like, wow, it moves you. The new movies don't move you.
They said that George Lucas's prequels are worse than the corporate made Disney Star Wars.
I'll get mad at that too.
Like
that's fucking ridiculous.
Revenge of the Sith. We saw how Darth Vader was made.
Yeah.
Like I watched that like 10 times during COVID. Like, don't jump, Anakin. No. I got the high ground.
Those early movies were pure.
This is George. This is his baby. That thing was set in his heart to show us as children the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys make of that? Lunga, I want to get your take first.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much sums up the sentiment of a lot of older Star Wars fans, or not even older, you're not older, but Star Wars fans that are more in line with Lucas's vision rather than Disney's vision of it. If you take the complete haters out of the equation, that's how they kind of feel. It's like, it does have a feel of corporatization, right? It has a feeling of Disney churn out machine. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Lucas had a story to tell, Disney was less interested in selling a story rather than selling a merch or selling a brand. You know what I mean? To make money on. And not to say making money is bad. George wanted to make money too. It's not like he didn't. I mean, we saw that with the merchant Ewoks. That's the reason Ewoks exist is because he wanted to make money. But it was still his baby. It wasn't just something he bought from someone to make money So he's kind of right there. Can we appreciate though how he called it Star Wars is?
It's like trying to say George Lucas's like he's got the S at the end of it.
Yeah.
Goldman, I like this comment from Emperor Holocron. He says Goldman looks like he's dying inside. You are truly the sequel fan here, which is fine because me and Lunga are kind of the OT fans and both have our respects of the we all respect the prequel trilogy in some way or another, but you are the avid sequel defender here. What do you have to say to Mr. Yeezy, the future president of the United States of America?
He's obviously entitled to his opinion. He likes the prequels. I'm glad he loves them. But my it's an ongoing joke with me and my roommates. We always try and find ways to trigger each other. Like they're big Baltimore Ravens fans, so I always make jokes about Lamar Jackson and stuff like that. So one of them's like, "Hey, come in here. I want to show you this video." And it was that clip. It's like people say the Disney film or Disney films, the corporate movies are better than the work of art prequels. I was like, oh yeah, that triggered me. I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong with thinking the prequels are great, and there's nothing wrong with thinking the sequels suck. I mean, I disagree. If you're talking about the Rise of Skywalker, maybe. I mean, that film does feel pretty like corporate. But I mean, I think The Last Jedi is also a work of art. I say somewhat similar with The Force Awakens. But he's entitled to his opinion. I'm happy that he loves the prequels. I strongly disagree. Those are really my thoughts.
That's fair. I mean, I was surprised by like some of their insight on it. I mean, even Joe Rogan bringing up Joseph Campbell, I was like, oh, I didn't know he would know anything about Lucas being inspired by that. I think it's something to say that like Kanye West being an artist, respecting Lucas as an artist, and I think his main message was the vision of George Lucas for his sequel trilogy outlines and just his story, and how the sequel trilogy from Disney, while probably using some form of the George Lucas outlines and George Lucas story for the Star Wars films, it does feel a little bit corporate. Like Joe Rogan was saying, is that what was it? Bob Iger's book was saying that like he and Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams set out to make The Force Awakens to appease the fans and kind of give them a feeling of what Star Wars used to be and what it feels like. And I actually like that. I really do like The Force Awakens. I think it is one of the probably top 5 Star Wars films. It's probably is my number 5. So I understand making films for that, but I think a lot of people just I don't know. I think it's an interesting discussion, mainly among. I think it's what makes it more interesting to me is that these two guys, who are some of the most popular people in the world, also feel the same sentiment as a lot of people who weren't fans of the Star Wars sequels.
One thing about that interview that really triggered me when he's like, "Revenge of the Sith is so amazing. I have the high ground. Like it's amazing." I'm just like it. Like I feel like that line, it's just a meme.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Like
don't do it. Don't hate on that line. Don't hate. It's the best line in the entire prequels.
I'm not hating on it, but that just because Revenge of the Sith is a very memed movie, it does make it fun to watch. But I don't think it automatically makes it a better movie. Like when someone says it's over Anakin, I have the high ground, I don't think, wow, that was just amazing dialogue that really moved me and really sold me on the emotion between Anakin and Obi-Wan. So when someone uses memes as a reason to explain why a film is great or a work of art,
no, it's the other way around. It became a meme because it was great. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing you got to remember. While some people will say this, and when they say it, they're being really stupid and hyperbolic. However, I know me and Star Wars Only are not going to say the prequels are a great work of art. They are not. Okay, let's be fair. They are not. Okay,
remotely close.
Right. However, if you're a fan of Lucas and you're a fan of the vision he had for Star Wars, this was still his vision. And even if you can still criticize the horrendously horrible decisions he made and what made them not great movies, and still say, but you know what? It still captured the feeling of Star Wars. You can say that and still say they weren't great movies, but they still captured the feeling of Star Wars. But when you get to the sequels, that's the thing. Listen, they had great technology. Last Jedi had the most amazing cinematography I've seen in a film ever. I would say, arguably, the best cinematography of any Star Wars film. Okay,
I agree.
The acting of Adam Driver was spectacular. Okay, I mean, there was a lot of good things. However, it didn't capture the same feeling that the Lucas vision did. That's the issue. I think that's what people are trying to say when they say that.
No, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying Kanye West is wrong. I strongly disagree, and I shared why I disagree.
That's fair, and I think you made a good point. I'm surprised, the stream didn't drop about 120 something viewers when you said that the memes don't make it a good movie. That's one thing I've noticed a lot, and it's because I have a really big Instagram following for Star Wars, and the people on there are just so civil, and a lot of the younger folk I would always see, like, they'd be like, no, Revenge of the Sith is really good. Have you seen all the memes from it? And it's like, I hope they realize the reason there's a lot of memes from the prequels is because the dialogue is so like bad. Like, I remember, like, Lung, you probably remember this pretty well with the internet. Like, I think it was between 2009 and like 2012 or 13, the "Are you an angel?" thing from Anakin and the Phantom Menace was a big meme for a long time. Like, that was a popular meme because people were like, bro, this is awful. Like, I'm not trying to say Jake Bloy got bullied for a reason. He didn't, but there is a reason people were like, hey, this kid can't act. It's because the dialogue was bad and a lot of those people couldn't act. And they made memes, and I love the memes. Don't get me wrong. The prequel memes are better than any meme from any trilogy that we had so far, but man, I know Anomaly is probably rolling over his eyes right now, thinking that we don't like the prequels for the memes, but the memes don't do him justice.
No, it went the actually complete opposite. Someone in there thought I have a shrine. Claudio says I have a shrine to the prequels. Dude, no, the OG trilogy is my favorite, not the prequels.
No.
And just because I love the sequels, the original trilogy is still my favorite trilogy. I mean, I got a cardboard cutout of Claude, not because he's the best character in Star Wars, but because he looks like a you-know-what, and it's just a really funny meme. So, memes are fun, but when you start to use memes as a reason why a film is very good...
I have a Kylo Ren figure.
Yeah, there we go.
I have a Kylo Ren helmet down there,
Joshua Smith says, "Are we forgetting about the cringe quote from Rose in The Last Jedi?" This is the point.
Have their problems.
Yeah, this is the point a lot of people have made, though, where they're like, and it's nice being in me and Lunga's position of like not really loving either the prequels or the sequels. So like when it's like sequels and prequels fan going against each other, it's like, oh, I don't care, because I can see the faults and the pros and cons between both. There's a lot of arguments for the prequels of them being good that like literally no prequel fan makes. Like, they're always just like, oh, your argument's bad, but they'll never say like, oh, Lucas really revolutionized the digital world and filmmaking, because I guess they just don't know about it, which is fine. But this point that like the prequels dialogue is better than the sequels is just wrong. Lawrence Kasdan wrote The Force Awakens. Rian Johnson, despite not being a great writer, when it comes to dialogue, the Disney films are corporate made. And so, yes, there's some bad dialogue in the sequels, but boy, the prequels tread that line. I mean, I wish I could just wish away my feelings. And then
I'll have a hot take. I think maybe arguably the worst line of dialogue in all of Star Wars is in Rise of Skywalker, when he says, somehow Palpatine returned. that line always gets
somehow me. That is a meta line. No, that is a meta line, because Oscar Isaac is like, bro, we had no idea. We don't know. Somehow we didn't even know. We got the script and we're like, he's back. Somehow he came back. I don't know. They didn't tell us in pre-production. Somehow he came back. I don't know.
Yes, I'm criticizing the sequels. I think it's an awful line of dialogue. I saw a funny comment that'll make you laugh. Star Wars Only. Salty Pineapples said, Goldman sequel fanboy, Lunga OT fanboy, Star Wars Only prequel fanboy.
Whoa!
Oh no! Oh no! Maybe,
no!
Jeez. I wish we could. I wish it was just like a role reversal joke where, like, Lunga has to defend the sequels, I have to defend the prequels, and Goldman has to defend the originals. Even though I think Goldman would have the easier way to do it, I am far.
He's also my favorite.
Yeah, it's hard to not love him. I mean, there we go. He's already got his.
Darth Vader sucked. Kylo Ren is the best villain ever in Star Wars. Raylo forever.
And then anyone who disagrees with you have to call him a racist, sexist, homophobe, you name it. Oh man, yeah. I think the trilogy debate between all three of them is going to be really interesting over the next 5 years. Will the sequels age like the prequels, or will they just kind of empty out into a vacuum among the Raylos and their own fans. It's interesting because I don't feel like the prequels are aging that well anymore. I think like you look back and you look at the CGI, you look at the dialogue. I think it looks better because a lot of people don't like the sequels, so they're like, oh well, or the prequels weren't that bad then. But I think eventually the kids, me and Goldman's age, when they came out with the prequels, we were kids. Now that we're older, we have a nostalgic fest for them. I think in 10 to 20 years, I think the prequels are going to be a little bit more irrelevant than they are relevant today. And I think the sequels might find some resurgence. And then I think the originals will just fade into obscurity, where like new kids, like my children, I'm going to show them the original trilogy, and they're going to be
like the Bible. It'll be 100 years old.
Yeah, they're going to be like, Dad, this is so fucking boring. And I'm going to show it to my grandchildren when Star Wars turns 100 years old in 2077. Like, now this is filmmaking, kids. George Lucas. I don't like the man, but he can make a goddamn film. And they're like, oh, shut up, Grandpa. Who cares about Star Trek? I'm like, oh.
And they're too busy excited about Star Wars Episode 15 by then.
Oh god, yeah. I like this comment. Somehow Lunga has returned. Oh man.
No joking aside, when we game on my channel every Sunday, we play Dead by Daylight and a bunch of other games, and I'm that rage gamer, right? And I'm not great at a lot of stuff, so I'm always pissed off, and it's always everybody else's fault, not the fact that I suck at the game. And literally, in my chat they've done a hashtag Lunga dies first. So it's like I gotta die first apparently every single time. So I put a shirt up in my store that says hashtag Lunga dies first, and me just like this. So yeah, somehow Lunga has returned because I always die first.
No, that's me and Among Us. Every time I play with friends, I'm the first one to die. Even when they're like, hey, I'm not going to kill StarWarsOnly first, they kill me. Last super chat for the night. Thank you, Brendan Dullman. Big fan of the channel. He says, just hopping in, what did you think of the episode and that ending? I also really like Cobb Vanth. We talked about it at length for a good close to an hour. We talked about it, but I think to summarize all of our opinions, we all really liked the episode. I thought it was great. Actually, before we go, I want to get both of your ratings for it, because I personally gave this episode an 8.7 out of 10, which may sound low, and the reason I did is because it's a simple story, but it works really
awfully specific. 8.7.
I didn't want to say 8. I didn't want to say 8 out of 10. I didn't want to say 8.5, and I was like, you know what? I'll meet him halfway because it's not a 9 out of 10. A 9 out of 10 is an A. This is a B+ material episode. Love Cobb Vanth. Want to see more of him. But yeah, I love this episode, but I don't think it's better than like the Deborah Chow episodes from season 1. So give me your ranking, guys. Goldman, I'll let you go first.
That's funny. So I recently made a Mandalorian video. At the end of each, I covered all the episodes, and at the end of each one, I gave my ranking. So I think I gave like the first episode a 9 out of 10. And then I watched the third one. I was like, ooh, it's very close. Like I think they're both 9 out of 10s. But just to clarify that I liked the first episode a little more, I'm going to rate episode 1 a 9.1 out of 10, and then episode 3 a 9 out of 10. And then I watched the 6th episode. I was like, oh, I think that's 9 out of 10 too. But I want to clarify which one I like more. So I gave episode 6 a 9.05 out of 10 to put it in between episodes 3 and 1. I need more time. It was definitely good. It's definitely up there. I may readjust my rankings because I don't know if I think those episodes are 9 out of 10 worthy. I'll just go 9 out of 10. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right, Lunga. Right now the average is kind of, basically an A, 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Well, I'm going to completely reject your scale and give my own scale. I'm going to give it 11.8 out of 12 parsecs. For a rating, but no, I would get I would say it's like between an 8 and a 9 out of 10. Only because I hate ranking an episode without having seen the rest of them for the season.
Agreed.
I need to see the rest of them, and I need to see how this episode ties into what happens later on, because there might be more poignant or more important aspects of this episode in later episodes. So, and it'll increase the value of it, if you will. When we get down there. So, but for a season opener, it followed the right formula, the working formula, without being repetitive. We got excitement. We got that westerny feel. We got a great new character right off the bat, played by a good actor, and we got that surprise at the very end bada bing, bada boom, Boba Fett. Which, by the way, IDBM for this episode credits him as Boba Fett. So, IMDb.
Yep, that's a good one. Sadly, Mr. Lopez over here is not on the same plane that we are. He actually gave it a 0 out of 10. Not enough. Star Wars only. Don't worry, all three of us will be in episode 3 for Mandalorian season 2. I cannot wait to show you guys our cameo because as the man, the myth, the legend says himself.
That's great.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great.
That's gonna be great.
You know what I hope they do? I hope in one of the other episodes, Mando has a plan. It doesn't go well, and he goes, I think I may have gone a little far in a few places.
No,
You may have gone too far in a few places.
Did that.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
If they say that, then it makes it intentional because that's
yeah.
Then Jim
I wanna
Farmer's a
hear-
fan of the show.
I want to hear Moff Gideon say that. I may have gone too far in a few places.
Right before he dies, like
Yes.
literally the last thing he ever says, he's just like, I may have gone too far. I would love that. Well, I think that's all the time we got for tonight, guys. Went a little over, but I mean, we had a good stream, a good amount of people tuning in, and a really good episode of The Mandalorian. I can't wait for next week's episode on November 6th, and I think we'll all be here, hopefully reacting to it. If not, we'll do it for episode 3. But thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back on November 6th. Make sure you subscribe to Darth Daddy Lunga and the Goldman's channels, who links are in the description below. Also, Darth Daddy Lunga is doing a pre-order for his comic book, right? The Isadora and Immortal Chains comic book.
Isadora and Immortal Chains. I know you guys are mostly Star Wars fans and sci-fi fans, but if you like comics, if there's any crossover, I am a comic creator. It's Lovecraftian meets kind of heroes kind of comic book. And it's my first entry out there. And the Kickstarter was successful. I'll be fulfilling it at the end of November. So I'm just trying to do a pre-order store for people who missed the Kickstarter to get in on it.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you check the links for his pre-order and both their channel description. Thank you all for tuning in. If you liked this podcast, if you liked this episode of Chatooine, make sure you leave a like, comment, or subscribe because it does help the channel out. And we're also on Spotify now. So if you want to listen to this, check us out there. Thank you all for joining us on Chatooine. We will see you all next time, and may the Force be with you.